The message came at dawn, though it did not arrive as sound, light, or signal. It was simply there, a thought in every mind, a voice that had no source yet spoke in absolute authority. Kneel or be erased. The words carried no emotion, no threat, just a statement of fact. The Galactic Dominion had spoken. They had arrived. Above Earth, the sky twisted as their fleet materialized, vast and unchallenged. Their ships, seamless monoliths of obsidian and silver, hovered in perfect stillness, each the size of entire cities. No thrusters, no visible weaponry, just cold, unyielding power. Humanity had long suspected they were not alone in the universe. Now they had proof, and it was a death sentence. World leaders scrambled. The United Nations Security Council, military commanders, and scientists across the planet worked through the data. Every simulation, every tactical analysis came to the same grim conclusion. Resistance was impossible. The Dominion had conquered thousands of civilizations, each more advanced than Earth. They did not negotiate. They did not make exceptions. They erased. On screens worldwide, historians found the same pattern. Entire species wiped from records, whole planets left barren. The Dominion didn't just conquer. They rewrote reality itself, ensuring those they destroyed were forgotten, their history reduced to nothing. Panic spread. Cities fell silent as the weight of extinction loomed. Religious leaders called for prayers, while politicians debated surrender. Billionaires fled to underground bunkers. Doomsday cults rejoiced, while scientists frantically searched for solutions that did not exist. But amidst the chaos, in a secure military bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, a different conversation was taking place. General Elias Voss, the highest-ranking officer in Earth's combined defense forces, stood before a panel of world leaders. His uniform was crisp, his expression hard as steel. Across from him, presidents, prime ministers, and monarchs whispered in fear. "We have one choice," Voss said, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "We fight." The room erupted. Some called him insane. Others insisted they had to at least try to negotiate. But Voss only shook his head. They don't negotiate. They don't accept surrender. They erase. He turned, gesturing to the live feed above the table. The Dominion fleet hung over Earth, watching, waiting. "You think they'll let us live? That they'll let you live?" Silence. A long moment passed before the president of the North American Union spoke. "Even if we fight, how do we win?" Voss smiled. It wasn't the smile of a desperate man. It was the smile of someone who knew something the enemy didn't. "We don't need to win," he said. "We just need to show them what it means to fight us." In that moment, the decision was made. Across the world, humanity did what it had always done in the face of extinction. It adapted. It prepared. And for the first time in history, the Dominion received a response to their ultimatum. It was broadcast on every channel, in every language, carried across the stars to the invaders waiting in Earth's orbit. A single sentence: "Come and try." The first strike came without warning. The Dominion did not offer another message, did not acknowledge humanity's defiance. Their answer was the only one they had ever given: a swift and merciless extermination. It began with the sky. All across Earth, the stars flickered and then vanished. The Dominion's fleet deployed a planetary suppression grid, bending physics itself to their will. Satellites were wiped from existence. Communication networks failed. GPS went dark. The world's greatest militaries were suddenly blind, cut off from each other. It was the first stage of erasure. Then came the fire. Monolithic Dominion warships descended into low orbit, unleashing weapons that did not burn, did not explode. Instead, entire city blocks simply vanished, erased as if they had never been. New York, Tokyo, Berlin, Cairo. The world's capitals blinked out of existence one by one, leaving only vast, empty craters. The invasion had begun. And yet, humanity did not break. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, inside the most advanced military complex ever built, the Warborn Initiative was activated. It was not an army in the traditional sense. It was something new, something built for this moment. The best minds on Earth had spent decades preparing for the unknown. Now, they had their answer. The Warborn were not soldiers. They were warriors forged for a war no one had expected. They wore exoframes designed to move faster than thought, linked directly to the neural pathways of the wearer. Their armor could rewrite its molecular structure in real time, shifting from impenetrable plating to adaptive camouflage. Their weapons, reverse-engineered from classified extraterrestrial discoveries, could pierce Dominion hulls, disrupt their reality-warping technology, and most importantly, destroy them. And they would not fight alone. All across the world, humanity adapted with terrifying speed. Civilian engineers worked around the clock to turn underground train systems into war bunkers. Hackers cracked into the remnants of the global network, using fragmented satellites to relay battlefield intelligence. Scientists worked without sleep, deciphering Dominion tech from the wreckage of fallen warships. The first Dominion forces to land on Earth found a planet that refused to die. Then came the first true battle. The Dominion landed their ground forces in what was once Paris, expecting no resistance. Their foot soldiers, hulking biomechanical constructs, designed to wipe out organic life, marched through the ruins of the city, silent, efficient, unstoppable, until the Warborn arrived. They did not descend in drop pods. They did not arrive in formation. They moved like ghosts, striking from the rubble, using the terrain as their weapon. Their armor bent light, making them near invisible until the moment they struck. Dominion soldiers fell, cut down by plasma blades and railgun fire before they even knew they were under attack. For the first time in their existence, the Dominion's ground forces experienced something new. Loss. The battle raged for hours. What was left of Paris burned, but the Warborn stood victorious. When the last Dominion construct fell, a message was sent, hacked into the remains of a Dominion transmitter, broadcast back to the fleet above. A single sentence: "We are still here." And the war had only just begun. The message spread like wildfire through the Dominion's vast network. It was impossible. No species had ever resisted them. Not truly. Some had fought, yes, but all had been erased. That was the way of things. That was the order of the universe. And yet, the humans still stood. For the first time in the Dominion's long and unchallenged history, their calculations faltered. Their war algorithms, flawless across thousands of conquests, could not predict the next steps. The humans did not follow patterns. They did not retreat when logic dictated. They did not break when faced with superior force. They fought in ways that made no sense, turning destruction into opportunity, using chaos itself as a weapon. And worst of all, they learned. The Warborn had no central command structure. They operated in small, decentralized units, each one adapting to battlefield conditions in real time. They scavenged Dominion technology, breaking it down, repurposing it, turning the enemy's own power against them. They were not just fighting to survive. They were evolving with every battle. The Dominion launched a second wave. It was meant to be overwhelming. Millions of troops, thousands of ships, entire battle formations descending upon the planet like an unrelenting storm. Cities were consumed in light, oceans boiled, mountains crumbled under the weight of orbital bombardments. Humanity should have been wiped out. But the Warborn had no interest in fighting a war on the enemy's terms. They did not hold the cities. They did not stand their ground. Instead, they turned Earth into a battlefield the Dominion was not prepared for. Underground tunnels became ambush points. Collapsing skyscrapers crushed entire Dominion battalions. Civilian scientists found ways to disrupt Dominion energy fields, leaving their forces vulnerable. Humanity was not fighting for control. They were fighting to drag the enemy into the dirt and make them bleed. And for the first time, the Dominion bled. On the outer edges of the battlefield, Dominion commanders received reports that their frontline units were going dark, entire platoons vanishing without a trace. It was impossible. Dominion forces were not losing battles. They were disappearing. Then came the first recovered Warborn helmet, retrieved from a fallen human soldier. The Dominion's warlords examined it, expecting primitive technology. Instead, they found something that sent a ripple of unease through their ranks. The helmet's neural core contained live combat data. The humans were not just fighting. They were recording every encounter, every Dominion strategy, every weakness. And they were sharing it instantly. Every Warborn soldier knew exactly how the Dominion fought, how they moved, how they thought. The humans were not just surviving. They were preparing to win. The Dominion's high command met in secret, something they had not done in centuries. Their voices, once cold and certain, now carried a trace of something unfamiliar. Doubt. The war was supposed to be over before it even began. Instead, it was only growing, and deep in the heart of the Dominion's archives, a truth was unearthed, one they had worked hard to keep buried. Humanity was not the first species to fight back, but if they were not stopped, they might be the last. The Dominion's greatest weapon was not their fleet, their soldiers, or even their reality-warping technology. It was their control over history itself. For thousands of years, they had erased every trace of those who resisted them. Civilizations did not simply fall. They were wiped from existence. Their cities were turned to dust, their records scrubbed clean, their names forgotten. Even the stars they once called home were shifted, reclassified, altered so thoroughly that no one would ever know they had been there at all. But humanity was unlike anything the Dominion had ever faced. They had fought wars over history before, over identity, over the right to remember. Their greatest thinkers had devoted lifetimes to preserving knowledge, ensuring that no truth, no matter how painful, was ever truly lost. And when the Warborn discovered the Dominion's true method of conquest, Earth's brightest minds set out to do something no species had ever done before. They fought back against erasure itself, the discovery that changed the war. It began with a single fragment, data recovered from the wreckage of a Dominion warship, encoded in a way no human system could decipher. Scientists pored over it, worked without sleep, testing, failing, and testing again. And then, one breakthrough changed everything. The Dominion didn't just erase civilizations. They rewrote the fundamental records of time. Their technology could reach into the very fabric of reality, altering memories, warping planetary databases, even modifying the minds of those who once knew the lost species. The only ones who were immune to this effect, the Dominion themselves. Until now. By studying the data fragment, humanity discovered a weakness, a way to resist the rewrite. The Warborn's neural implants, designed for real-time battlefield data sharing, could be modified to act as memory anchors. Information stored in these implants existed outside the Dominion's influence. A Warborn soldier could die, their body turned to dust, but their memories, their knowledge, their proof of history's truth would remain. And once humanity had a weapon to resist the Dominion's erasure, they did what no one had ever dared to do. They began to restore what had been lost. The rise of the forgotten. The first recovered data set was a name, the Ketheri, a species wiped from existence centuries ago. No records remained of their culture, their history, their people, until now. With the Dominion's technology in their hands, humanity pieced together fragments of their lost past, rebuilding what had been erased. And as the data was transmitted across the Warborn network, something incredible happened. Scattered across the stars, hidden deep within Dominion-controlled worlds, small remnants of the Ketheri still survived. They had been altered, their memories suppressed, their biology subtly rewritten to make them forget who they once were. But when the transmissions reached them, something awakened inside. And they remembered. Across Dominion space, others began to emerge. Long-erased species rediscovered their pasts, realizing they were not alone, that the stories of their extinction had been lies. The Dominion's greatest weapon, control over reality, was slipping from their grasp. The beginning of the end. Panic spread through the Dominion's ranks. They had planned for war. They had planned for conquest. They had never planned for resistance against history itself. And as the Warborn launched their next attack, humanity did not just fight for survival. They fought to restore every species the Dominion had ever erased. The war was no longer just about Earth. It was about rewriting the universe itself. The Dominion's heart lay in a single impenetrable fortress world, Val-Zur. It was the first world they had ever conquered, their seat of power for eons. A planet wrapped in endless layers of defense, shielded by gravity wells, quantum lock fortifications, and weapons so advanced that no fleet had ever come close to breaching its perimeter. Every command, every erasure, every decision that shaped the universe emanated from here. And now, humanity was coming for it. The impossible assault. Even the Warborn knew a direct attack on Val-Zur was suicide. The Dominion's fleet still outnumbered them 1,000 to 1. Even with their adaptive strategies, even with their stolen technology, they could not win a conventional battle. So they refused to fight one. Instead of launching a full-scale invasion, humanity struck where the Dominion never expected. Deep space insertion teams infiltrated supply routes, hijacking key transport vessels. Hackers wove their way through Dominion networks, feeding false data, rerouting security systems, turning the enemy's own defenses against them. The Warborn used hit-and-run strikes to pull Dominion forces away from their core defenses, forcing them to spread themselves thin. And then, in a single coordinated moment, the trap was sprung. The fall of Dominion's greatest shield. For centuries, Val-Zur had been protected by an impenetrable planetary shield, a barrier that had withstood supernovas, asteroid impacts, and armadas the size of entire star systems. No weapon had ever breached it. But the Warborn had learned something the Dominion never expected. The shield was not powered by an external source. It was a living system, connected to the minds of the Dominion's ruling elite. The same rulers who had erased entire civilizations were the key to the fortress they believed unbreakable. And humanity had learned how to sever that connection. Deep inside Dominion space, Warborn operatives triggered a hidden protocol within the very core of the Dominion's reality warping technology. The memory virus, a weapon not of destruction, but of truth. It surged across the network, not erasing history, but restoring it. Every forgotten species, every lost civilization, every erased soul, they all came flooding back. Across the Dominion, high-ranking officials clutched their heads, overwhelmed by memories they had erased with their own hands. And on Val-Zur, the ruling elite collapsed under the weight of their crimes, their minds unraveling as the truth they had buried came rushing in. The planetary shield flickered, and for the first time in Dominion history, it fell. The last stand. The Warborn struck without hesitation. Dropships rained from the sky. Elite strike teams descended into the heart of the city world, carving through the last remnants of Dominion resistance. Across the planet, statues of long-dead rulers were shattered. Archives filled with erased history were reclaimed, and Dominion soldiers, faced with the undeniable truth, began to surrender. But deep within the core of Val-Zur, the Dominion's final failsafe activated, a last-ditch effort to rewrite everything. The Dominion's ultimate weapon, hidden beneath the surface of the fortress world, powered up. A device designed to erase not just species, not just planets, but entire timelines. If activated, it would reset the universe to a state where the Dominion had never been challenged, where humanity had never existed, and the countdown had already begun. As the Warborn fought their way toward the control center, a single thought echoed across their network. Stop it, or we are all erased. The battle was not over yet. The Dominion's last weapon was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. It did not fire projectiles, did not unleash explosions, did not even tear through flesh. It was rewriting the very concept of humanity. Deep beneath Val-Zur, an ancient machine pulsed with cold mechanical intent. The Continuum Engine, a device capable of reshaping reality, erasing entire civilizations not just from the present, but from history itself. If it completed its activation, Earth would never have existed. Humanity would never have drawn breath. The Warborn would become nothing more than an unrealized possibility, a forgotten thought in a universe where the Dominion had never faced defiance. And the countdown had already reached 4 minutes. The descent into oblivion. Warborn strike teams stormed the underground corridors of Valzur's deepest sanctum, pushing through the last line of Dominion defenders. These were not mindless soldiers. These were the sovereigns, the last remnants of the Dominion's ruling elite, fighting with a desperation born of fear. They had never known loss before. Now, they faced extinction. The battle was brutal, close quarters, fought in the flickering red light of the Continuum Engine's activation sequence. Energy blades clashed against plasma rifles. Dominion warlords, their bodies enhanced by ancient technology, tore through human soldiers with inhuman strength. But the Warborn were faster, sharper, fueled by something their enemy had never understood. Survival, memory, defiance. 3 minutes left. The unseen enemy. As Warborn operatives pushed deeper into the control chamber, their neural implants began to glitch. Reality itself wavered around them. Some saw their weapons dissolve into nothing, as if they had never been made. Others felt their own memories fade, names of loved ones slipping away, entire moments of their lives vanishing. The Continuum Engine was not waiting for the countdown. It was already erasing them. General Elias Voss, leading the assault personally, felt the weight of it pressing against his mind. He remembered his childhood, then he didn't. He remembered his first battle, then it was gone. He looked at his own hands and wondered if they had ever existed. 2 minutes left. The final gambit. The engine's core was sealed behind an impenetrable energy field, controlled by a quantum-locked system that no human weapon could breach. Even Dominion technology would take hours to override it. The Warborn did not have hours. Then, from the Warborn network, a single voice cut through the chaos. Dr. Riza Falk, lead scientist of the Memory Anchor Project. She was not on the battlefield, but she had been studying Dominion technology from orbit. And she had an answer. "You can't shut it down," she said, "but you can corrupt it." The Continuum Engine was built on the same principles as the Dominion's reality warping technology, rewriting existence itself. But now, thanks to the memory virus, the Warborn had access to something the Dominion had never anticipated. The truth. Falk's plan was madness. Instead of trying to stop the Continuum Engine, they would force it to restore what had been erased. Every civilization the Dominion had ever wiped out, every species they had ever destroyed, every planet they had rewritten out of existence, all of it would return at once. But to do that, someone had to manually overload the system. 1 minute left. The price of victory. General Voss did not hesitate. He removed his Warborn neural link, the core of his battle awareness, the very thing that made him faster, stronger, more than human. He plugged it directly into the control terminal, flooding the Continuum Engine's core with raw, unfiltered memory data. The system screamed in protest. Every erased name, every forgotten battle, every lost soul came pouring back in, overwhelming the Dominion's final weapon. The Sovereigns, still fighting desperately, recoiled as memories they had destroyed came rushing back, drowning them in the weight of their own atrocities. The countdown reached 0. But instead of erasing humanity, the Continuum Engine unraveled the Dominion itself. Across the galaxy, entire civilizations that had been wiped from existence began to return. Lost planets reappeared. Ancient cities rose from the dust. Species long thought to be myths woke up, remembering who they were. The Dominion's empire, built on the foundation of erasure, collapsed under the weight of restored history. And at the center of it all, General Elias Voss, his mind shattered from the raw flood of memories, smiled one last time. Then he was gone. The fall of the Dominion. As the Warborn stood amidst the ruins of Val'Zur, they watched the impossible unfold. The Dominion's war fleets, suddenly leaderless, fractured into chaos. Their ruling elite, once immortal in their control of history, now faced the wrath of species they had wiped from existence. And humanity. Humanity had done the impossible. They had not just survived. They had rewritten the universe. As the Continuum engine unraveled the Dominion's greatest weapon, the galaxy itself seemed to shift. Planets that had been erased flickered back into existence, their civilizations waking from a non-existence they had never realized they had suffered. Ancient star systems long thought lost reappeared, their people staring at the sky in wonder, confusion, and rage. The Dominion was broken. For the first time in untold millennia, they were no longer the architects of reality. Their empire, once eternal and unquestioned, was collapsing under the weight of restored history. Across their territory, species they had erased centuries ago rose in rebellion. Their own soldiers, suddenly aware of the truths they had once been forced to forget, turned against their masters. And at the center of it all, humanity stood victorious. The echoes of the lost. The Warborn stood among the ruins of Val'Zur, their armor still bearing the scars of battle, their bodies bruised and bloody but alive. For a long time, none of them spoke. They simply looked around, processing what they had done. The Dominion's seat of power was in flames. Their enemy had been broken, and yet there was no celebration. Because Elias Voss was gone. His sacrifice had been necessary. He had poured his very mind into the Continuum engine to overwrite its programming. But now, there was nothing left of him. His body remained, still standing at the control terminal, but his mind was elsewhere, or perhaps everywhere. Riza Falk knelt beside him, her fingers hovering just above his skin. She accessed the Warborn neural network, searching for any trace of his mind, but there was only silence. "He's not coming back, is he?" someone whispered. Falk swallowed hard. "No, but he's not gone, either." Because Voss's memories, the memories of everyone who had ever been erased, were now part of the universe itself. His sacrifice had restored history. He was written into the fabric of time, a force of will so strong that even the Dominion's technology could not erase it. The rise of the forgotten. As the galaxy woke from its long, forced amnesia, messages began to flood human communication networks. The Ketheri, the first species humanity had restored, broadcast a signal of gratitude. They were not the only ones. The Jital, a species that had once ruled half the stars before the Dominion erased them, sent word that they were returning to reclaim what was theirs. From the far reaches of space, the Eldarica, a species thought to have vanished thousands of years before humans had even developed language, sent envoys to speak with humanity. And one message was different from the rest. It came from deep within former Dominion space, from a world that had reappeared after being erased for over 100,000 years. The transmission was simple, but its meaning was clear. We remember. Across the universe, the forgotten were rising. The Dominion's last breath. Even with their technology, even with their fleets, the Dominion could not fight the weight of history itself. Their warlords, once untouchable gods, were hunted by those they had erased. Some fled into deep space, hoping to outrun the reckoning that was coming. Others fought to the bitter end, refusing to accept that their reign had ended. But the truth was undeniable. The Dominion was no longer feared. They were hated. The future of humanity. With their greatest enemy defeated, humanity faced a new question. What now? The Warborn had been created for war, forged in the fires of battle. But now, the war was over. Or was it? Because as the last remnants of the Dominion burned, a new power struggle was beginning. The species that had been restored were not all peaceful. Some had once been conquerors themselves. Some saw humanity as liberators. Others saw them as rivals. The war against the Dominion was over. But the battle for the future of the universe had just begun. The Dominion was dead. Its empire, once spanning galaxies, had crumbled under the weight of restored history. What had been erased was now remembered. What had been conquered was now free. Across the stars, species long thought extinct reclaimed their place in the cosmos, and now a new war was brewing. The uncertain aftermath. The Warborn stood as victors, but victory was not peace. New powers were rising from the ashes of the Dominion. Some species, grateful to humanity for their liberation, sought alliances. Others, remembering their own lost empires, saw the restored universe as an opportunity to reclaim what was once theirs, by any means necessary. The Jital, an ancient warrior race that had once rivaled the Dominion in power, declared half the galaxy their rightful territory. The Eldarika, a species of hyper-intelligent beings erased in the earliest days of the Dominion's rule, demanded justice for the crimes committed against them. Even the Ketheri, humanity's first allies in the war, now questioned whether humans should hold such influence over the new order. For the first time, humanity found itself not as the underdog, but as the deciding force in galactic history, and that made them a target. The Warborn's new mission. The Warborn had been created to fight an unwinnable war. Now they had to prevent a new one from starting. Across the ruins of Val-Zur, human envoys met with representatives of the newly restored civilizations. Some meetings ended in cautious agreements, others in outright threats. Not everyone wanted peace. Old rivalries had been reignited. Grudges that had been erased for millennia now burned fresh in the minds of those who had been restored. And then, a warning came from deep space. The last Dominion secret. A message arrived from a fleet of Warborn scouts investigating former Dominion strongholds. They had discovered something the Dominion had hidden even from its own people. A last contingency. In the depths of space, far beyond the reaches of any known civilization, the Dominion had created a redoubt world, a final bastion, where the last of their kind had retreated, not in defeat, but in preparation. The Dominion had lost the battle for history, but they had left behind something far worse. A fleet larger than anything the Warborn had ever encountered. A doomsday force meant to wipe out the entire galaxy if the Dominion ever lost control. It had remained dormant, waiting for a signal that its masters had fallen. That signal had just been sent. And now, an armada of machines, bioengineered horrors, and self-replicating warships was waking. It was not an army meant to conquer. It was a weapon designed to erase everything. A war without end. Humanity had fought to rewrite the universe. Now, they had to fight to save it. The Warborn, weary but unbroken, prepared for one final battle. They had defied extinction before. They had shattered an empire that ruled for millennia. And now, they would face the last horror the Dominion had left behind. Because humanity did not just survive. They endured. They adapted. They fought. And they would never stop.